All right, welcome to this month's NWGA webinar. Today we're going to have a presentation on the status of the RNG industry by Sam Wade. I just want to go over a few things before we get started as usual. Everybody will be muted during this as we're recording it, and it can be found on our YouTube channel later today, tomorrow, for you to view or share with others. If you have questions, please ask those in the chat box and we'll get those answered for you. And then also next month, we're going to have a webinar December 15th on the AGF study, energy system resiliency. So if you want to register for that, it is up on our website. And just so you know, our webinars are the third Thursday of every month at noon, and we'll continue with that into the new year. Except for the first webinar will be on a Thursday, and you'll get that information on our website. So Sam, would you like to go ahead and start sharing your screen? I've stopped sharing there.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. Thanks, Judy. And
Yeah.
thanks for the chance to be here with everybody today. I always enjoy talking to this group. Let's see here. So can you see my screen here now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let me just sort of get it situated. Try to put it full screen here, but my computer's thinking about it. All right, there we go. So for those of you who don't know us well yet, I'm with the Coalition for Renewable Natural Gas, or the RNG Coalition. I'm our Director of Public Policy, and we're the national trade association for the RNG industry in the US and Canada primarily. And we advocate at the state level, at the provincial level, at the federal level in both those countries around RNG issues. We have over 350 members now across the entire supply chain for RNG. Everybody from RNG developers to marketers to end users, including utility members. And we have over 98% of the RNG supply in North America within our membership. I think everybody on the call probably has a sense of what RNG is, but just a little bit about how we view our mission. We're really trying to collect, capture the organic waste methane emissions that would otherwise be emitted into the atmosphere or wasted via flaring, and turn it into a useful form of energy in the form of high quality, renewable natural gas that can meet pipeline specifications. And we do that from all types of organic waste and using all conversion technologies, and we're end use agnostic. We believe that RNG is a good substitute for conventional natural gas in pretty much every end use application. So just as far as an update on how things are progressing in the industry, we've experienced robust growth recently. This slide shows the number of operational projects in the blue line and the number of new projects added each year in the green dots. Obviously, very exciting growth over the last decade or so. And to take us all the way up to sort of current status here in 2022, the current number of operational facilities across the US and Canada is 268, and on the order of 250 or so under construction and planned. So for a total of 513 projects. And that really puts us well on track to meet some of the internal milestones that we had set for the industry. We have this effort that we refer to as the SMART initiative, or the Sustainable Methane Abatement Recycling Timeline. And as part of that, we set out milestones. So our milestones for 2025 was 500 projects. So we do think we'll reach that milestone. And then we have subsequent milestones to try and get all the way to eventually capturing the methane from over 43,000 facilities across all sources of organic waste. So we still got a long way to go to get to that, but we're making good progress relative to the milestones that we've laid out so far for the industry. And that's really being driven by a few key public policies. The first is at the state level and the provincial level, the idea of low carbon and clean fuel standards. Those policies basically reward the production of low carbon fuels at the expense of conventional high carbon fuel producers like gasoline and diesel. And in the places where these policies have already been put in place, we're seeing the doubling down on them almost, or like the states that have had them going for a while realize that they're useful tools and they're increasing the stringency. So, for example, British Columbia is examining increasing the stringency of their program all the way to a 30% greenhouse gas carbon intensity reduction. California is looking at least 25, but probably in the 30s. And Oregon and Washington are basically doing the same thing. Oregon actually has finalized the most ambitious target at 37%, as I imagine many of you know. So that's fantastic. Canada has also put their program into place now. It's a little bit less ambitious, but it is great in that it covers the whole country, and that it stacks with the BC LCFS. So there's good alignment there. We're making a lot of progress in other states as well, most notably in New York, where they're about to finalize their greenhouse gas scoping plan at the end of the year here. And thus far, it does include a clean fuel standard. So it would be great to see New York emerge as an East Coast leader to build on top of the momentum that we've seen on the West Coast for these types of policies thus far. With respect to the non-transportation end uses, the biggest driver is utility procurement programs. Most notably, we have, again, the West Coast leading the way for the most part, with Oregon under SB 98, as many of you know, setting the most ambitious targets sort of in the near term here. California not too far behind, I'd say. They're beginning to get up and running. Should begin to procure next year, is my understanding. The BC rules have also been strengthened to target 15% RNG in the pipe by 2030. And recently Quebec finalized their mandate of 10% by 2030. So those RNG procurement standards are great. I believe there's going to be some momentum for other states to follow along. In the states that haven't done firm sort of procurement requirements, we see voluntary programs still helping a lot, and we see sort of clean heat standards, if you will, both in Minnesota and Colorado and Vermont. And that the alternative there is really just like RNG isn't the only thing that can count toward those targets. Other methods of decarbonizing and moving away from conventional gas use can also count. So RNG believes it can be competitive in those frameworks as well, but of course we prefer the standards that are more focused on RNG. So federally, had some very exciting news with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. It really is unprecedented with the sort of scale at which these tax credits are going to come in and help almost all low carbon technologies significantly. With respect to RNG specifically, the most helpful part, at least right out the gate, will probably be the inclusion of biogas property, including cleaning and conditioning equipment, under the ITC, or the tax credits that you get historically just for the capital investment in biogas to power projects is now inclusive of renewable natural gas equipment, which is fantastic. So they've also extended the alternative fuel tax credit through 2024, which then sort of transitions to a tech neutral fuel production credit past that point. And both those are really important to reward the end use of RNG. It also does other things like makes the carbon capture and sequestration tax credits under 45Q more attractive. And it creates a new hydrogen PTC, which obviously RNG can be used to make hydrogen. And it rolls in sort of the same sort of technology neutral greenhouse gas carbon intensity performance based metrics that the low carbon fuel standards have helped pioneer. So all in all, we're very happy with how the Inflation Reduction Act has sort of evolved. We're involved with taking additional chance to provide input to Treasury, which I'll get to in a second. But thus far, most of the membership is very excited about this and believes it will be another strong driver of RNG growth moving forward. So a little bit more about the ITC portion of things under Section 48. It does cover all biogas property. There is some debate about where it would stop at a landfill project, but in the case of a digester project, it's very clear that the digester and the accompanying cleanup equipment would be fully covered. The base credit is set at 6%, but we believe that most folks will qualify for the 30% level because many of the RNG projects do already pay a good wage. So meeting prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements to get to that level should be very possible for most projects. You can also potentially get other 10% adders if you meet domestic content requirements for the materials that you use when you construct a project, or an additional 10% adder if you're located in certain energy communities. So that structure obviously is new, but generally makes sense to most developers, and many believe they can at least qualify for the 30% level. So what's RNG also doing at the federal level right now? We're awaiting with a lot of anticipation the forthcoming rulemaking from the US EPA on the renewable fuel standard, which folks sort of refer to as the SET rule. That should be out on the 30th of this month. What that will do is both set targets in the program under a new framework where EPA has more discretion to decide how stringent the program should be. And it will also probably bring in new opportunities for RNG and biogas, most notably in the form of eRINs, which is basically producing power from RNG or from biogas and then matching it to electric vehicle demand. So very excited to see what that looks like and the specifics of the proposal from EPA and the SET rule. I also thought I should point out that the Department of Energy is doing a lot on hydrogen as a result both of the IRA and due to the infrastructure bill, where they received over $8 billion for hydrogen hubs. We're providing input to DOE on the clean hydrogen production standard, or did that very recently, sort of explaining the way in which we think the life cycle analysis should be used to assess what is clean hydrogen, what should be eligible to receive favorable treatment under the hubs, and how RNG should work in that under the hub model. So we just turned those in this week. Treasury is also, as I said, seeking guidance on implementation of the IRA, and we continue to file comments there. So we just put in some comments on the ITC and some other provisions, and then we'll be commenting on the alt fuel tax credit in early December as well. So that's sort of a summary of where we are with our advocacy and where the industry is as far as growth as well. Here's my contact info, but I'd be happy to take questions now too.
All right, well, let's go down to the chat here and see if we have any questions. I do not see any questions. So for those of you on, do you have any questions for Sam? Well, Sam, it looks like we're going to be short and sweet today. We have no questions from the audience here. So I want to say thank you very much for presenting this to us. Oh, wait, here's one. What are your thoughts on moving H2 on legacy pipes?
Yeah, so that's a critical question. My understanding is that some amount of hydrogen into most types of pipelines is safe. Probably less than a 5% blend. It could be done fairly easily under most conditions. In California, for example, they just recently released a proposed decision looking at the issue and authorizing the utilities to begin to do injection on that level, or even higher in some cases when they have sort of controlled conditions and they know the material in their pipe really well. So I do think it's an important new type of renewable gas that should be given additional attention and should be allowed to demonstrate that it can be helpful. Most of our members are interested in hydrogen but haven't done too much with it yet. We come more from the biomethane perspective, but we're certainly excited about that opportunity if and when regulators approve, blend levels that are appropriate in their region. And my understanding is a lot to do with the material that you currently have in your pipes, and the embrittlement and other things can be resolved, by looking at the material correctly and preparing the system. And then you have flame temperature issues and NOx performance, which is another area that people often attack the idea based on. And while we're engaged on those topics, I wouldn't say I'm an expert off the top of my head on those issues. But we're supportive of all renewable gases, and we think hydrogen blending should begin when deemed appropriate by regulators, especially environmental regulators and the PUCs.
Okay. Can you speculate or speak to large capital investments to convert biomass to other AG products to RNG?
Yeah, that might be a sort of referring to the idea of gasification of solid waste instead of using anaerobic digestion. I would just sort of take that from large capital investment. So, like the large investments that have been done to build digesters, I think is a pretty proven business model at this point. The gasification and pyrolysis type technologies are less proven in the US, but are still going to be an important type of supply for RNG in the future. So we do see large investment already in digesters, and we see, like, for example, BP acquired Archaea recently for $4 billion or so. So a lot of significant movement toward consolidation or major players recognizing the value of RNG companies. So that might also be what they're getting at. But with respect to moving toward new technologies, we're going to need it, right? We're going to need large capital investment across all forms of production technologies for renewable gases.
Okay. Are there any other questions out there? All right, then. Well, Sam, thank you very much for joining us today and giving us an update. And we will close today out. Remember, we have a December 15th webinar. It's on our website. If you want to go there, it's nwga.org. Otherwise, I'm going to wish you all a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Bye.